We've been talking today about exhibition revenue and sales revenue and improving the bottom line. And Jack Tattersall from Guidebook is now going to talk us through maximising sponsorship opportunities with a mobile app. If you've got questions, as always, you can use the Glitter tech. It's funky and cool, and it's a really good way of getting your questions across. So I'm going to pass over to Jack.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me. So, as we just said, if we can start my presentation. Technical glitch. There we go.
You're on.
Okay, cool. So, I'm talking about maximising sponsorship opportunities with a mobile app. So, why am I qualified to talk to you about that today? I work for a company called work for a company called Guidebook, not called Jack. My name's Jack. We make mobile apps, funny enough. So I work with companies to make sure they get a return on investment, and a great way to do that is through sponsorship. So just to see who we've got here, can I get a show of hands here who works in events? Great, okay, thank you. And for those events, do you have sponsors? Great, cool. And of course, I'm sure you've been to events that have sponsors. Any event these days has sponsors. It's a great way of creating revenue streams. Also, do you use apps? Have you used apps before for your events? Okay, about 50% of people here. And not really a question for you guys, but just something to think about is how do you measure that sponsorship ROI? So if you're giving out paper, if you're sending emails, or if you do have an app, what I want you to think about is how you measure that interaction with the people that are picking up those pieces of paper or picking up your lanyards. So a couple of goals for the presentation I want to give you today is what sponsorship opportunities you have by using mobile apps, how you can create value in those relationships with your sponsors, and also tips and ideas to help you sell these opportunities. So selling something new, if you haven't used mobile apps before, or in-app sponsorship, there's always new things that you can learn and techniques you can talk to your sponsorship partners about. So why is in-app sponsorship important? It's a great way to boost revenue from your event. It's a great way to boost engagement as well. So we want users to always be using our app, and it can also create a more valuable event. Be this for your attendees, be this for you as a team, and of course your sponsorship partners as well. If people are using your app, make sure you're showing off your sponsors in there, and make sure you're using that engagement well. Sponsorship is worth billions of pounds every year, and that number is always growing. The mobile ad spend is growing and is now at 25% of total ad spend. So you want to be ahead of that curve, and you want to be adopting these new techniques that people are using. I'm sure you'll all agree that sponsorship in apps now that we see and use all every day is more prominent, and that the content is actually also better. So when you're going through stories on Instagram, for example, the content that you see is much better. You almost don't really realize that it's actually an advertisement that's coming up on your screen. You also, as I just said, you want to make sure that you're monetizing the engagement within your app. So say you have 1,000 attendees, they all download your app, they're all using it for 30 minutes each. That's a lot of time spent in-app that you should be monetizing and selling to your sponsorship partners and making sure they know about that engagement. Also, based on those engagement stats, it should enable you to have metrics-driven discussions with your sponsorship partners, so you can give them stats and value on what they're spending their money on with your event. So how can we break down sponsorship? On the left-hand side, we have brand visibility, and on the right-hand side, we have insights. On the left-hand side, these are things that you're very familiar with. So this is your paper program, your lanyard, your coffee cup that's given out to your events, and maybe pens, things like that. These are very traditional. They've always been used. They're historically hard to measure. So once you've given that pen or that lanyard away, it's very hard to know how that's going to be interacted with. But having said that, it's pretty straightforward to sell. Sales teams like selling sponsorship because it's visible, it's tangible, it's in your hand. Where it gets exciting and where we can learn about our attendees is on the right-hand side with the insights. So what people are interested in, what they're looking at and why they're attending sessions, how are they navigating your event. And then also, something you can't get unless you count the amount of pens you have left at the end of the event is how many attendees you're actually reaching. How many people have downloaded your app and have looked at it and browsed the content and engaged with it. So, of course, you can cover both sides with an app, both brand visibility and insights. You can create your tangible, visible things on the left-hand side, and then you can get your insights from the right. So you can sell sponsor banners, push messages, single sponsor icons, app branding, sponsors hubs, and tweets, of course. And then on the insights section, you can have surveys and quizzes. You can have sessions, live polls. You can target your messaging. You can have gamification. And you can also have featured exhibitors. And everything here should be tracked. No matter who you use for your app provider, they should be giving you stats and metrics on what has been clicked on and how many times things have been accessed. So now we know what we can sell. We want to know how it looks. So I'm going to give you Guidebook as an example, of course. But as I said, any app provider should give you similar products to sell as your sponsorship package. So something that we're all very familiar with here is a social feed. Just as Facebook or Instagram gives you sponsored posts, you can do this in a Guidebook app, and any app provider that you have should offer that to you. So people are posting photos and statuses on here. Get your sponsored posts in the Interact feed. You can time these so they're coming out throughout your event and you don't have to worry about them. They can then link to different sponsor pages, maybe even websites. We also have sponsor banners. So when you open the menu, you see a banner that will scroll through. And this again can link to a sponsor page or a website, and you can see the amount of times it's been clicked on. You also have app branding, so you can start the journey of sponsorship right at the beginning of the user journey. When I open the app for the first time, I'm going to the Festival of Marketing, I can see that they're sponsored by Adobe and Microsoft. Also a sponsor hub. So this is like a list item of all your sponsors. We always say to make these fun and engaging, rather than just having a logo and some text. But it's a great place for your attendees to learn more about who your sponsors are, what they offer, and maybe even go through to a website that they have. Then lastly, a single sponsor icon. So maybe you have a title sponsor, or you want to elevate one of your sponsors, in this case Guidebook. This is straight in the menu, it goes straight through to the Guidebook page. We could have a link to our website, we could have a link to a document, and lots of information about why we're sponsoring the event and what we do as a company. So how to create a compelling sponsorship package. Now you know what you can sell and what it looks like. You need to make sure you get it out there to all of your sponsor partners. So we always advise to make an action plan, make it clear and precise, and be confident about what you're selling, who you're selling to, be that your sponsorship partners, who's coming to your event, how you're going to measure it, and then how you're going to deliver it. You want to make sure they know that you're going to have tangible information about your attendees at your event, and which you can't do with a piece of paper or a pen. This is going to the metrics. You can give them tangible facts and stats about your sponsorship. And also have the confidence to challenge the norm. Maybe this is what we've always done and that's how we're going to keep doing it. It's said a lot in the event industry. You should try and break that and be confident to break the curve and adopt new things. This is a question we get asked a lot at Guidebook. How do I know what to charge for sponsorship? It's a new thing. I don't know really how much value it has. There's no magic formula. What you want to think about here is 3 different things that should help you calculate that monetary figure. So what is your revenue goal and how is that broken up? Does it come from your exhibitors? Does it come from your attendees? Does it come from sponsorship? And will your app sponsorship contribute or be an add-on to your sponsorship goal? What are you selling? So are you selling attendees? Are they really high senior level or not? Are you selling a long-term event? Is it a week-long event? Is it just one day? Is it free or is it paid? You need to consider all these things when you're creating your sponsorship package. And also who you're selling to. So are you selling to a really traditional company that is quite hard to adopt new tech? Or do you have sponsorship partners that are excited about tech and using it? You should think about who they are and how you're going to pose that question. So So how to deliver your ROI. You've had your event, it's been great. You've sold lots of sponsorship. Now is the time to prove it and make sure that your sponsors keep coming back and want to use your in-app sponsorship again and again. This is the start of the show, the metrics. And as I keep saying, any app provider should give you these. They should be live. You should be accessing them all the time. In here, in the Guidebook metrics system, you can track your download numbers. You can track your engagement. So how many times have people downloaded your app? How long have they engaged with it? What have they looked at? All those things you can look at, as well as all your direct metrics to your sponsors. So how many times their icon has been viewed? How many times their website has been clicked on? How many times their banner has been impressed on people? And the graph at the bottom shows that. So the lead up to the event, people are seeing the banner, and then there's a big peak during the event. This is factual evidence of how many times the banner in total has been seen by people, and then it breaks down each sponsor in there. Also the clicks, so anything that's clicked on in a Guidebook app is tracked, and you should always look at everything there. As I said, everything is clicked on, so what is measured? Everything. Your impressions, your session views, your banner views, your splash screen views, and your sponsor clicks. And then on the insights, much more to learn about your actual individual attendees. So surveys that they've completed and questions that they've actually answered. The sessions that they've registered for, so where have they gone and what do they like doing? If they finish a QR game and they enter a competition, you can give your sponsors information as long as they've opted in. And interact posts. Are they engaged with networking and social features? Quite a lot on the screen here, but this is just to show you should have a plan when you're delivering a sponsorship package. So you should set your app goals. They should be separate to your sponsorship goals. You should create the package that we went through. You should agree on your team ownership. You should present it to the sales team and make sure they're on board and make sure they're excited about new things that they can sell. And you should agree on a deadline and then launch. Make sure you go through a process. You don't just sporadically sell sponsorship or add it on and make it seem like it's not got value. To finish up, some common challenges that we see at Guidebook. So when you're getting a sales team involved or you're selling sponsorship for your first time, you're going to have some hesitation and some questions. So some common challenges we see: we like paper. It sells well. We want to do what we did last time. We want to move away from this. And here's some things that you can say in return to those objections. 10,000 events worldwide used Guidebook, as well as other app platforms last year. Attendees are now expecting it. Attendees want an app. They want to digest content on there. They don't want a piece of paper to lug around and carry home that they're probably just going to throw away anyway. They want to use an app, so give them a platform to do that. Paper guides are a point solution for the 2 days of the event. Apps start the conversation early, before, during, and afterwards, interacting with users. Extend the period of time that your sponsors have value and exposure to your attendees. If I give someone a pen, that conversation and that communication is over as soon as I've given it to them, unless they go on to use it, but they probably forget the brand name that's on it. Use an app to extend that communication period. I can't help you calculate return on investment for traditional sponsorship methods, but I can with an app. Impressions equal money. So if my banner gets 30,000 impressions, that should equal a monetary figure. And now I'm going to run through the questions.
Just before you do, does anyone here have any questions
on the floor
like to ask, or we've all gone through the app? We'll go through the Glitter app then. Can it ever take away from the integrity of an event? There is always that worry that I've heard before, that sort of objection.
Yeah, it's a great question, that top one. And yes, I guess the answer is yes, because if you're asking that question, you probably think that at an event. But you want to make sure that it's in line with what you're doing. So use sponsors that are relevant to your attendees. Make sure you're not sending out millions of push notifications and spamming your users. And make sure that it's valuable content. So when I said about the sponsor hub, having fun content and not just being a logo and a website, make sure it's engaging, it's giving me value as an attendee.
And what information are sponsors most interested in?
Definitely the stats. So how many times my logo's been clicked on, how many times someone visited my website or downloaded my PDF. And then definitely things like QR game results, and actual email address and names of people, job titles, things like that. So data that's going to help them know about the demographic of your event and help them hopefully basically get more sales.
I have a question. Is there, in terms of your client base, your current client base, are there certain industries where an app perhaps works better with the audience, or is it down to the organizer and their communication? What is it? You know, sometimes people say, "Oh, my audience isn't the right age; they're too old," or they don't get it, or they're not interested. Is that true? Do you have stats to prove that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's down to the event. I think it's down to the organizer. We always make sure that our clients have a promotion plan, have a timeline, make sure they're shouting about their app. Lots of people do have concerns about the older generation, but they usually become power users because they see the value, and they maybe are hard to adopt an app, but once they use it, we find that they actually use it a lot more than a younger generation who are maybe flippant between apps. They're doing a million things at once on their phone, so they're using the apps for less time. And the older generation see the value and actually digest the content more.
Oh, that's interesting. That they they're more engaged. That's more valuable, isn't it?
It's maybe harder to get them onto the app in the first instance, but then once they get on there, they're using it a lot.
Yeah. Fantastic. There is another question. Oh, sorry. How do you sell an app as part of your sponsorship package? Actually, I've seen that before. Again, we're talking about sales quite a lot today. I've seen that quite before where, you've got a fantastic salesperson who can sell exhibition space like no other, yet you throw in the idea of a sponsorship or an app to sell, and they kind of have a very hard time selling it.
Yep.
What advice could you give organisers to help train their sales staff and get that sale?
Yeah, so I think you need to just think about the value that it's going to give your sponsors. You need to think about those metrics. They're very important. And you should work with your app provider to get them to help you sell it. They should know about the value that their app has. Then they should be asking you about your attendee, and you should be creating a package that basically shows sponsor value. But make sure you've still got something tangible. So it's like not just QR games, not just insights, but actual brand visibility within the app all the time.
Which of your customers has been the most successful using an app? Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, I mean, Guidebook's bread and butter is events, but we also use large companies for staff onboarding and learning and things like that.
Yeah.
It just depends on the audience and how you're using that value to communicate information. Basically, anything that can be sent in an email or printed on a piece of paper is information. It can be put into an app. And if you communicate that value and explain why downloading an app is going to give you as a user value, then it should be successful. Obviously, events like this that are about tech, events that are like gamer conferences, they always have high engagement, as well as universities. So it probably is a generational thing. And then users that are just up for trying new tech.
Have you had people who have taken up your app because of sustainability issues? Not issues, that they want to be greener. Because obviously there is that added benefit if you're not printing all that items.
Definitely. That's definitely one of the biggest things we talk about is how does it feel to throw away thousands of sheets of paper because they haven't been picked up, or seeing your bins full of paper because people are picking up your program, maybe even taking a photo of it on their phone, looking at it on there and then throwing it in the bin. So there's definitely a sustainability issue. Yeah. And if you're not considering that, I think you're already behind the curve.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Yeah. So the next question, how can you engage C-level sponsors in the event app?
Lots of different ways. You should have tiered packages. As we went through today, you can pop some out. So if you've got a title sponsor, and you should basically create that package for them. If it's maybe your first deployment of an app or first deployment of sponsorship, you might want to give it as a freebie and then prove its value with the metrics after the event. And then once you've done that, maybe you can break up the more valuable things and then maybe the cheaper or less costly things, engage with them that way.
I'm going to go to a question that I like. Have you used gamification for sponsorship? Obviously, gamification is huge and really being pushed by marketing teams. But have you used it with the app and used it for sponsorship? Yeah,
definitely. So this works really well with exhibitors. So if you have exhibitors around that you want that are paying slightly more for sponsorship and you want attendees to go there, we have a QR code game, which is like a scavenger hunt. So So you would go around and scan the different QR codes. And that means that you're just going to different exhibitors more than others, potentially. So you can use it that way. And then the results there as well. So the Festival of Marketing, they were sponsored by Microsoft. They used the Microsoft tablet as a prize. So you go through, you want to win the tablet, so you do the QR hunt. And then, you get to basically go to the Microsoft desk at the end, submit your results, they get to talk to you. So there's different ways that you can increase the flow of your attendees by using sponsorship and gamification.
And control the flow of your attendees, I suppose, as well.
Hopefully, so not everyone's just in one place.
Yeah. What if your audience don't see use app but believe it would be useful? So what if they don't use app?
Yeah, good question. I mean, if they don't use apps and you've got one, it's kind of your fault for not promoting it. So if you have an app, they should be using it. And if they're not, then you haven't promoted properly, you haven't spoken about it enough. If you think it's useful, it probably is. You should, but you need to talk about it, you need to communicate the value to your attendee. So maybe for an organizer, it makes it easier for you to not go to the printer, not have to get loads of programs here. It also streamlines your teams. But you need to also think about the value that it's going to give your attendees. So if you think it's useful, tell them why you think it's useful as well. I think that kind of answers that question.
Yes, yeah. I have a bit of an odd question, really. We were talking about, using apps. So a lot of people use apps rather than using official handbooks and show guides. Is there a way, have you ever, we were talking about GDPR and data, in terms of data, how can you make sure that people don't hack your app and scrape the data of your attendees or your exhibitors? Is that all protected in the app?
So Guidebook takes that really seriously.
Yeah.
Obviously, any tech can be hacked.
Yeah.
But we take it very seriously to make sure everything is very secure. We use different hosting that is very, very secure. And we have different levels of security on apps. So you can have it public in the App Store, or you can have passphrase or passwords, different ways to protect your data. Yeah. What we say is if something's very, very secure, that's, say, on an intranet, or you really don't want to be out there, maybe don't put it on a mobile app, but point to that content in your mobile app.
Okay. So use it as a way of diverting people rather than hosting it on there.
Exactly.
How do you shift the mindset of, I like having an event guide, this is a brilliant question, having an event guide to take home to using an app, and how do you non-tech savvy audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like having an event guide to take home. I think people take their phone home, so if they're doing that, they're taking the event guide home. I get that tangible, physical thing, and that's why it's so easy to sell sponsorship in a glossy leaflet, for example, because you can see it and you're taking it home. But I think that you need to think about the value and the extended period that it's giving you as an event organizer. The tech-savvy audience thing is tough, but it's like selling value. Why do you download any app? So, for example, why do you use Instagram? Because it's a great way to see good pictures. It's a great way to interact with your friends. Why do you use Citymapper? It's a great way to get around the city, make sure you're on the right tube carriage, and make sure you get the train home. Again, if you're creating an event app, why are your users going to use it and why is it going to give them value? It doesn't matter if they're 16 or 18. There's value in there, and you should be able to tell them what that value is and why they should have it and why they shouldn't worry about taking something home. And as an event organizer, it's also putting that onus onto you as I can extend the period that I can communicate with them by giving them a piece of paper. Like I said earlier, that communication period is over as soon as they walk away. With an app, you can continue it.
And surely, for not much longer, people are more tech savvy, and that's just going to becoming more and more and more.
Exactly, yeah.
My mum and dad have iPads, and they're way more tech savvy than mine. My mum's got about 1,000 Instagram followers, so I think really it's way more than me. She can give me directions. So I think that actually that's only a short-term issue, really.
Yeah.
So
I think so too. I think it's coming, and they definitely are power users. Everyone might think I'm just saying that, but we've worked with companies that have older employees that are very traditional in their methods, and their older employees are definitely using mobile more. We work with large organizations that some of their exec level board members don't use the desktop, they just use an iPad because they want to be so mobile. So their generation is definitely catching up.
Yeah. Fantastic. So any other questions at all? No, I think done. Thank you for. I think have we answered them all? I think we have, haven't we?
I mean, if we're on 904, so if you want to come and chat to us, we've got we've got a big phone that we can give you a demo on, and we can talk more about any questions you have. I love talking about sponsorship and metrics. So
and it's
come say hi.
It's not just a nice visitor experience. You can actually make some revenue on it. So
exactly.
I think that's the important lesson
Always,
to take
more
away
money.
here. Thank you very much, Jack.
Thank you.
you.